Welcome to the Sideline Live podcast. Subscribe for more episodes and follow our social media at the Sideline Live. We'd love to hear from you. Today I'm delighted to be joined by the lead physiotherapist for the Irish senior women's hockey team, Róisín Murphy. We had a fantastic chat about her experiences as a physio, playing ladies Gaelic football, and some really interesting discussions around recovery, training load and much more. I hope you enjoy. Hi Róisín, thanks a million for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So what I like to do is I kind of give the guests a little bit of time to explain who they are and what they do.
Yeah, well, my name is Róisin Murphy. I'm a physiotherapist at the Sports Institute in Northern Ireland. I'm the lead physio of the women's hockey team. So that's a bit about me.
Brilliant. So we're going to get into your role as a physio in a bit, but you have an interesting story of yourself and your own sporting career. So kind of taking it back to the beginning of, you get involved in sports and playing sports. Growing up, I know you were involved a lot in ladies football.
Yes, so GE is my background, football. I played camogie when I was a lot younger, but I can't really remember those days. But Silverbridge Harps is my club, and we started a ladies football team when I was about 13 or 14 years old. Mm-hmm. So it was our first ladies football team at the club. And yeah, I think we were thrown in at the deep end in senior football. We're quite a young team, but it was good. And I think if I complete a season next year, that'll be 2 decades of playing on this team for Silverbridge.
Brilliant, yeah. Very good. And kind of looking at your underage career, do you have any sort of highlight of the years playing with Silverbridge, with the club?
Well, I think the first few years for us were pretty tough. I mean, I remember a meeting at the start of the second year we had the team, and our goal was to score a point. So I don't think our first year went too well.
Brilliant, yeah.
And it wasn't long after that where our goal was to win a game.
So, brilliant. Okay, I get the level now. I'm starting to understand.
Yeah. It was a slow enough start for us, I have to say. But no, I mean, we've had fantastic success. We won junior and intermediate championship, and we're now a senior championship team, and we play in Division 1 league in Armagh.
Fantastic, yeah.
So it's been quite a journey. I'm very, very blessed to have been part of it for almost 20 years, and I feel really young and good about myself when I say that. But
it's probably nice to be part of, you were there at the beginning when the goal was to just score a point, and now you are in Division 1 senior competing. That's brilliant. That's a nice to be along that journey with the club and with all of your teammates as well.
Yeah. And fully remember all of those days as well. And I think that shaped us as a team, and even the club over the years have supported us as a ladies team. They've given us what the men has had, and we're very grateful of that as well. And we've really we've had some great success then at a senior level as well. So we've helped bring the community together a bit.
Fantastic. So you mentioned before you were involved with senior ladies team with Armagh, but kind of taking it back, when did you first get involved on the intercounty scene? Did you play underage intercounty at all?
No, I was pretty late on to the senior panel. Mm-hmm. It was after university, after I had finished university. Yeah, my university coach at the time asked me to try out, and I think I was probably the only club player that was Division 3 club at the time.
Right.
The senior team. It was a steep learning curve for sure. They're fantastic footballers to step up from Division 3 to 2 to 1. Even at that, that's a good few years ago now, was still quite, it was quite a difference. So
yeah, totally.
To be training with them girls, it was such a privilege, but definitely a shock to the system at the same time.
I'd say so, definitely. What was that like kind of for you and your family, to be called in and to make that jump? As you were saying, it was obviously quite difficult to make that jump, especially probably in training and at the kind of practice matches within the squad.
Yeah, I mean, it was a fantastic experience. I think when I got over the initial shock to the system physically, I loved training. I love training hard. It was a great group of girls. I'm sure they still are, but at the time, I made some great friends through that. But also they were a very, very committed bunch of players. they were 100%ers. We trained really hard, but we became friends off the pitch as well. And we had some great success. We won the Ulster Senior Championship in 2014, and we got really close. We came to the semi-final of the All-Ireland 2 years in a row. So
yeah.
Yeah.
All that hard work obviously paid off. Getting to that level, like, that's obviously a huge achievement.
Yeah, it was. It was great to be part of the team that had that success, and they seem to be going strong again this year.
Yeah, I was only watching the highlights there of the match at the weekend. I can't remember who they were playing, but absolutely cracking team, and they definitely have.
Tyrone, yeah.
Or Tyrone, yeah, good, and
Yeah.
they have a bright future ahead of them. Definitely, they're a good squad, all right. And
Yeah.
then, kind of with your own career, then you mentioned to me yesterday when we were having a quick chat, you tore your ACL.
Yes, yeah. So I tore my ACL at the end of county season. I think it was maybe 2015. It was, I think, yeah, it was a hard time. I think we were knocked out of the senior semi-final on the Saturday, and we had a club game on the Monday. And 20 minutes in, I contacted a player awkwardly and ruptured the ACL. So I would like to say that put my county career prematurely retired, but there's other people who would argue that I was going that way anyway. I wasn't young, so
we'll stick to that story anyway.
yeah, that's my story. So,
brilliant. Yeah. That was obviously tough to take, but as you mentioned again yesterday, that kind of gave you that avenue to focus on your professional career as a physio, and kind of taking it back to wanting to become a physio. Obviously, you've been involved in sport, probably had a big influence on your decision.
Yeah. So I mean, I can't really, if I'm honest, I can't really remember the reasons behind studying the undergraduate degree. But I do remember my reasons for kind of moving into sport and wanting to be involved in sports physio more. I mean, physio is quite a broad area when you're studying at undergraduate, but I suppose like anyone involved in sport, you're always chasing that high. Even though the lows can be quite low and quite lonely, you're always chasing that high, because I mean, I haven't found anything that can replicate it in life, other than sport. So when I did the cruciate, I was just really had a great opportunity to work with a physio, Paul Carher, alongside him with a season with the Armagh men's county team.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah.
And that was my first probably insight into working, at a more elite level, and kind of getting a taste of, sport and physio at this kind of, high performance level.
Totally.
So, yeah. I find it very stressful. The decisions had to be made quicker, and the margins for error are much smaller. But it was very interesting. You're part of a team, and like I said, you're chasing performance, you're chasing success, you're chasing that high. So that's when I decided that I would pursue a career full time in high performance sport.
Fantastic. And that was great insight to have, and be kind of sort of thrown in the deep end of, look, this is the elite, this is what we expect. If you're going to be doing elite, we're going to expect this from you and nothing else.
Yeah.
And then kind of chatting about your undergrad, a lot of my demographic would be sort of in the college and that sort of age group. Where did you study your undergrad in physiotherapy?
I studied at the University of Ulster in Jordanstown.
Oh, very good.
So,
and it was that's 4 years, is it?
It was a 4-year course when I did it. Yeah, I think it might be a 3-year course now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I actually work at Sideline, and the Sports Institute of Northern Ireland is on the campus. So there was a certain amount of nostalgia when I took that job a few years ago.
Yeah.
A bit of temptation walking past the Students' Union, but I'm past that now, I suppose.
Brilliant. And what kind of advice would you have for maybe secondary school or even kind of those in their 20s or even 30s that are looking to become a physio? Do you have any sort of advice or anything you wish you knew starting off in college?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a broad area, so I would go in really open-minded to the undergraduate course. So, sports physio is actually a a small part of it, and sports physio at a high performance or elite or professional level is smaller again, and that fits within musculoskeletal physio. But you also have neurology and respiratory physio as well, and I would just go in with an open mind. I think in physio, I mean, the theory is fantastic and necessary, but I think the experience is really where you get stuck into things.
Yeah.
So experience to back up your uni degree in lots of different areas, and not to specialise too soon.
Okay.
Because the other experiences in NHS or in private practice or pitch side, I mean, they're all going to stand by you in whatever route you decide to go down. And I would suggest, or I would recommend, having a mentor.
Yeah.
So the Chartered Society of Physiotherapists for students and those that are qualified do have like a mentor process. And I have a mentor myself, and it was something that if I had known 10 years ago, I would have definitely, I would say seek out a mentor is definitely one of my pieces of advice for somebody starting physio.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That you could nearly say that for every college course. Try seek out somebody that you can just ask, even if it's the stupidest question. It's someone to run an idea by or something like that.
Yeah. And the way technology is now, I mean, my mentor works in professional sport and has done for years, and he lives in France, and
Oh wow, okay, yeah.
It's just the way technology is now. You can really tap into all of these expertise.
Fantastic. And then coming out of college, did you start off in the Sports Institute up in Northern Ireland, or did you start somewhere else?
No, so I worked for a few years in private practice. I always did an element of sport. So I would have done physio for the men's team, Silverbridge men's team, and a few other teams in around Monaghan and Louth as well. And then I took just really what I was saying earlier about physio being broad and getting experience in lots of areas. I decided to move into the NHS to experience that myself. So I ran a private practice to keep my hand in there in Silverbridge, and I worked full time in the Belfast Trust for a few years. And then after that, I specialised in an area in orthopaedic ICATs for a few years, and then I moved to Scotland. So I did a year. I did a year in the Scottish Institute of Sport, where I worked with the Scottish Thistle, so the national netball team, and the Super League, the Pro Super League team. Fantastic. And then I moved back home, and I've been in the Sports Institute for 3.5 years, so all around the place.
Yeah, you got a bit of taste of everything there. That's brilliant. And you, as you said before, you're the lead physio with the Irish women's hockey team. How did that opportunity come about?
Yeah, so when I was in Scotland working at the Scottish Institute, I was on initially I was on a 6-month contract there, and then I ended up staying maybe 13 or 14 months, and I interviewed for the Sports Institute, and I interviewed for the lead physio role in Liverpool ladies football team. Very different.
Yeah.
Very different jobs, but I was successful actually in both of those, luckily. But I chose to come home to Belfast, and part of my role started out with looking after the Ulster-based athletes. And after a few months of working with the coach at the time, Graham Shaw, and the team, he asked me would I lead in the programme, and that's where we were 6 months out from a World Cup. And
yeah, the infamous World Cup. I had to ask you about that. What was it like? Obviously, that was huge, and to be honest with you, that was the first time I watched hockey on TV. Like, to be honest with you, what was that like? Being with the squad over in London, and just gaining that momentum from each game and making it all the way to the final.
Yeah. I mean, it was a fantastic experience. I think what you see on TV with all the documentaries it's fairly real. That's how I remember it as well when I watch it back. It was incredibly warm in London, which is something that maybe doesn't come across as much. I remember in one game, the way they built the stadium up around the pitch, it really trapped the heat. And I remember in our quarter final, I had said to the doctors, what's the heat? They work off this heat stress index to see if it's safe to continue to play. Yeah. And he said it's right at the limit of cutting the game. So it was very, and we do a lot of heat acclimatization camps in like the likes of South Africa and Chile and all around the world, but I don't think we realised we had to do it when we were going to London.
Yeah. I didn't even realise how, because I've been in London during the summer and it's warm, but I'd say whatever way the stadium was, my God, the poor players. And you guys as well on the side of the pitch, obviously.
Yeah, the physio's sweating as pale as I am, laughing on the sun cream.
And then kind of briefly chatting about, obviously it was a huge success and there was obviously a lot of support and everything for the team. What was your highlight off the pitch?
Yeah, I mean, these are, they're a fantastic bunch of girls and athletes to work with, and being around the team in the excitement of all of that was definitely one of my off the pitch highlights. Mm-hmm. Every morning we would go and do yoga, and we would go for a short walk. We had kind of commandeered an area of green, and we would put on some tunes and do some stretching and some yoga, and that was just a really nice experience. But also seeing, as the weeks or as the days and weeks went on, I mean, seeing the amount of exposure that they were getting through the media, and watching the athletes see the amount of exposure they were getting through the media as well. I mean, what they've done for women's sport and the enormity of it for sure did not hit them for maybe weeks or months after the World Cup, but that's something that nobody can take away from them now.
Totally, yeah, that's brilliant. And then kind of chatting about your role as a physio, can you kind of explain to the listeners, what is your role at training maybe compared to match day?
Yeah, no problem. So at the minute we are back at national training camps. So we're based in Dublin, Abbottstown. Mm-hmm. So we train on a say, for example, if we train on a Monday or Tuesday, Monday morning I would assess any athletes that's maybe picked up any injuries or niggles from their club matches on a Saturday. And then after that, we go out onto the pitch, and I would work with any of our rehabbing athletes or any of our athletes that are return to performance plans on the pitch.
Fantastic. And
on a Tuesday,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. And on a Tuesday, then we run physio clinics, we run joint gym sessions with S&C, and then any kind of rehab or return to performance plans that need to be happen on the pitch, then we get involved in that.
Brilliant. And then on match day, let's say the game was at 2. When does your role as a physio kind of start? I don't think people realise sometimes the behind the scenes work that goes in hours before the game and hours after, obviously with recovery.
Yeah, I mean probably 6 a.m. in the morning.
Oh God.
But anything, I mean, hockey is they run off a quite congested schedule, so it's not like the Gaelic or inter-county even where you have a game once a week. I mean, if we're on a training camp there, we could be away for 14 days and we could have 6, 8 international matches. The Olympics is 8 international matches in 14 days. So, they play a really congested schedule. So, actually during the match, I mean, you don't want to be in use. You don't want people thinking that they need you. They do have a performance mindset to perform, but from first thing in the morning, if I were to talk you through that, we would go for usually a stretch, a walk, mobility, and we would review some subjective wellness data. So the athletes all enter in some online data of what their quality of sleep was like, what their muscle soreness was like, their fatigue. And if we had an opportunity on a training camp to maybe reduce them in the gym or reduce them on the pitch, then we might use this data to help make an informed decision about that. And then as the day goes on, then we do any kind of treatments that are needed for the match. We kind of review the GPS as well, make any calls on players. And at the side of the pitch, then you want to be mostly just there if anybody needs you or anything goes wrong. And then straight after, when the game finishes, that's when the recovery kicks in straight away. So if we do have training sessions, we don't utilize ice baths or anything like that. We do want that adaptation there. But if we are on a congested match schedule, then we would utilize things like ice baths for a quick turnaround. But we heavily put a lot of emphasis on where the evidence lies for recovery, which is sleep. and quality sleep and nutrition.
Okay, so that was actually one of my questions there was key things that players can do to help maximise their recovery, and that, as you said, stick with the evidence-based. It's sleep and nutrition. Sometimes I think maybe we're a little bit quick to run to the fancy stuff and what looks good on Instagram.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think they're very underestimated as good quality sleep, and we put a lot of information and advice around sleep hygiene and what good sleep hygiene looks like. And we have a nutritionist that works quite closely with the athletes about the type of food that they should eat, the quantity, and depending on their energy demands, right down to what their hydration should look like, depending on what type of sweater they are and how much they lose. But I mean, at the same time, like, you got to use what works for you too. So if there is an athlete that really finds yoga and active recovery, we would really advocate pool recovery. But if there's somebody that really doesn't like getting into the pool, you're not going to put a mental stress on them during a competition.
Yeah.
So there's some girls that disagree with me when I'm saying that about the ice baths, but hopefully they're not listening.
Brilliant. And then you kind of spoke about it there with the data you have from players and sort of adapting their training load with the data. What advice would you give to younger players and even coaches on managing training load and making sure, not injury prevention, but just making sure you're not overworking yourself?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting area. Definitely for the talented younger athlete that's maybe playing a few different levels within the one sport, and then is maybe playing a few sports as well, and they're maybe at school doing PE or playing other sports. So I definitely think that the biggest thing for that athlete is for communication, is for all of their coaches and parents, and to be talking to each other. So a lot of the time they're slipping through the net is that the camogie coach doesn't realise they're playing football, and the football coach doesn't realise they're playing netball, and they had a match that day but they've been asked to train that evening. So I would say I would say you don't need to I wouldn't advocate specialising too early on. I think that there is a protective effect for injury and also for performance if you do play multiple sports, for sure. But there is a way of doing that correctly, and speaking to the athlete or speaking to the young player and asking them what they want, what's their goal. If they're physically able to be playing at a higher level, and that will bring them on technically, then I think that's perfect. Let them train with the seniors and let them top out for the minors. But if they are, technically really good and the seniors want them on the team, but physically they're not there and they're getting pushed off the ball, and psychologically and mentally they're not there, then you have to ask, are you doing that for the benefit of the player or the passion? Or are you doing it for the benefit of your team? So I think it is a complex issue, but involving the player, their parents, and all of the coaches is probably your way forward.
Yeah, you don't even think about, like, I wouldn't have even thought about the mental side of going up to play at a higher level. Like, obviously it's a big toll mentally. You're playing against guys and girls who are going to be maybe 10 years older than you at sometimes at adult level. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, and if you look at some of the soccer clubs that have this biobanding that's in, and it talks about how the chronological age doesn't necessarily match where you are maturity wise. Obviously in certain sports we can't get to that that level, but there's plenty of examples where I think Gareth Bale or Oxford Chamberlain were actually held back, so they were played maybe under 14 when they were 15, and that's to give them a chance to kind of catch up physically, but it's really individualized for the athlete at that stage.
Yeah, and probably as well education. If you educate the athlete, they'll know, they're the ones who are going to know best. Like, it's their body, they know how sore they are, they know how strong they feel. If you educate them and have, as you said, open communication, the compliance, and they're going to realise, you know what, I don't feel great, I shouldn't really train with the adult team tonight, maybe I'll give it a rest.
Yeah, exactly. And I think at that academy level in football, they do call them things like that. They would call it the Oxford Chamberlain pathway, as opposed to saying you're being held back, because obviously that could have a psychological impact negatively as well if it's not managed, correctly.
Totally, yeah, that's a great point. And then just chatting about COVID-19 and you know, as you said, your role is a lot of the time keeping players on their rehab schedules. How challenging was it to keep players in shape and to keep those on the recovery path who were fighting injury?
I mean, yeah, for sure there was challenges. I mean, you know, this from a strength perspective, our athletes are used to being in high performance gyms both sides of the border and having the input of experienced S&C coaches and physios for eyes on. So it was a challenge in terms of equipment and the variety of equipment and access to equipment that some athletes had.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're talking about conditioning, I mean, the surfaces that they're running on, so they're used to just running on hockey pitches, doing the conditioning on hockey pitches, and all of a sudden there's a 1k limit or a 5k limit, and they have to run on hard roads or Gaelic pitches, or so taking all of that into consideration, each plan had to be really bespoke for the athlete, and the difference in north and south restrictions posed an extra bit of complexity in the planning as well, where I mean I couldn't travel to see a lot of the athletes for a period of time, and it was a lot longer in the north as well before the things started to open up. So we just had to be really communicating with each athlete about, you know, what they had and what was working for them, and we had to be really innovative. We used Zoom calls like this, we used tele rehab and physio a lot, and we took it as an opportunity. I mean, when the Olympics were cancelled, you know, it was a stressful time, you know, for the athletes for sure. We had done a lot of profiling in January, a lot of tests, and we were able to kind of use that data and give our athletes work on. So, you know, to clear up niggles that they maybe wouldn't have got the opportunity to work with the coaches and the athletes and see what their key performance indicator was, and if there's anything we could do remotely then to feed into that performance wise. So we tried to work remotely with S&C, you know, physio, and just really prescribe individual prehab and work ons for the athletes. So that was the way we looked at it.
Yeah, and it's trying to put, as well as you said, put a positive spin and have, you know, if let's say I need to work on whatever I need to work on, you know, I have now the time to really kind of attack it and really get in shape before Tokyo 2021.
Yeah. And the likes of this this kind of platform was great because you can't really, nothing can be assumed. And I think physio working with a team for a long period of time, sometimes you do assume this and that, and you just get in, get your hands on, whereas you really have to listen to the athlete, and you know, you can't just draw assumptions. And I do think that there's positives in using telehealth in some respects as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's brilliant. And then kind of chatting about, again, we're going always switching back and forth with my questions. What are the biggest misconceptions about being a physio?
Yeah, I think probably over the years this has changed, or I'd like to hope it's changed, but there is probably a misconception that physios do rubs, you know, that it's all soft tissue therapy. And we are moving, you know, the evidence definitely suggests that, you know, injury management is more active, like it's exercise therapy, it's copious prescription of load, etc. There is a place for manual therapy. I use manual therapy for sure, but that would probably be the biggest misconception. And even in the role I do now, I probably am 60% clinical, so treatments, rehab, pitch work, returning players from injuries, but we can do so much more with players that aren't injured. So looking at what their performance gains needs to be, from, you know, we work with the technical coaches, we work with the S&C, we work with the athlete, and we kind of push them boundaries of performance. So I think planning and, you know, coordinating physios and doctors and working as part of a multidisciplinary team to kind of push performance in uninjured athletes is a big part of what a performance physio does as well.
Yeah, so it's not just giving a rub down before a match.
No, although sometimes I wish it went back to that. It'd be a bit easier than than some of the meetings and logistics I'm involved in.
Brilliant. And then my final question before we move on to the Sideline 7. If you could follow any team or athlete in the world for a week, who would it be and why?
Yeah, for me, I'd love to follow Liverpool, I think.
Okay,
Um,
that's interesting.
I just love to follow that kind of professional setup. I'm fond of Klopp when he speaks. I just love to see how they do it. I think there is a misconception that even amongst us working in high performance sport, that the professional level does it so much better, that there's so much
Hmm.
money they can do this and that. And I don't know, I think we do pretty well with what we have.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would be massively surprised with how they conduct their days, how they conduct their weeks, how they conduct their, their training cycles. But I'd love to see it and experience it.
Yeah. That's brilliant. And be the
Yeah,
fly on the wall and just kind of watch everything for a week.
I think so. I think that would be good.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. So the Sideline 7, people are sick of me explaining it, so it's the same 7 questions for every single guest so the audience can compare their answers. So I'm going to start off with question 1. What is your favourite quote?
My favorite quote is, "Today I do things that others won't do, so tomorrow I do things that others can't do."
That's a great one. I've only come across it recently, but I'm a mad person with quotes, and I have these huge lists, and that's near the top of it. So that's a good one.
Wow.
That's a good choice.
I don't know who
What
said it
is?
now, but
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. I've no idea who said it, but it was on Google Images, I think.
you can
What
quote
is the
me on that
best?
one, sure.
Yeah, there you go. I'll give you the credit. um, what is the best sporting event you've been to? And I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this.
Yeah. It's the London Hockey World Cup for sure.
That was an easy choice, I think.
Yeah.
What is the biggest setback or challenge you've had in your career? And that can be in sport and in professional life. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, I think the cruciate for sure was one of those things that was very challenging for me. It probably defined me as a person moving forward as well. It moved me into kind of high performance sport. It was incredibly hard mentally. It's given me a lot of empathy for athletes who injure and sustain long term injuries, and the support that they need. I mean, I think there's a lot of assumptions when people get injured that um, they can cope, or that's fine. And I think we just need to make sure that everybody has whatever support they need, and it's not always physical support.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a great point. Because I was just saying to you before, I'm injured at the moment, and the first thing I realised was I'm so used to going out training 3 times a week, and I was just sitting at
yeah,
home doing absolutely nothing. Like again, it wasn't physical support that I needed; it was emotional and psychological. Like my friends are great and my family and everything, so it's nice to have that support. But you're right; it's sort of an assumption. Asher, she'd be grand. She's loads of time off
yeah.
now to
And
enjoy
that's
herself.
I injured playing club. The county season was finished. I was part of the panel. I wasn't a big county star by any stretch of the imagination, but you lose your identity. I couldn't work,
Mm,
so I wasn't a physio. I couldn't play football, so
yeah,
you go to the shops at the weekend, or nobody wants nobody asks you, "Oh, are you playing this week?" Or how's the team, what's the vibe in the
yeah,
team. And you lose that month on month on month, and it takes a lot to. And that wasn't the highlight, like that was the for the high level athletes that do have that as their full life
mm,
as well. But I do think it was
mm.
you lose your identity a little bit when you go through these big injuries, and it's lonely.
Totally, and that's a great point about professional athletes because that is their livelihood as well. They're used to going out in the training pitch, whatever, and then coming home. But now, sure, they're not going anywhere and stuff. It is tough, all right. Moving on to the next question. Looking back, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
Yeah, probably don't work too hard, don't study too hard, don't stress too much. I mean, it's easy saying that now. I think what I do and where I am, but yeah, I would, and even with
Yeah,
coronavirus, I'd just say enjoy your friends and family. Play more ball, travel more.
yeah,
Yeah, I think you can really get sucked into the world of work, and you will at some stage. So don't be rushing it at
yeah.
18.
I won't. I'll let my mum know anyway. Say, oh no, I'm taking a chill
Yeah,
day.
and
Róisín
don't tell
told me
my
to.
bosses and work I said that either. They'll be thinking of.
Oh, I won't. Second last question. Who is your dream dinner guest and why? And the last few guests have turned this into a dinner party, so I'll accept a few
Yeah,
guests
this
if
is
you want.
tricky. And maybe, well, I'm a big Joe Dolan fan, and I actually,
Okay.
you probably don't know who he is, do you?
No, I
I
have
would
an
give you
idea.
a tune, but my singing's not a strength. But I reckon he could provide the entertainment for a dinner. So I'll let you Google him when we get off the call. Like,
Okay, that'd be good. Yeah, there we go. I'll
yeah,
have a good listen to the songs. I might join you as well,
I
depending on
don't
how they
think you're
go.
going
We
to
might
join
join
me
you.
based on the music, no, but enjoy it anyway.
And then, final question. It always stumps everybody, and it's terrible because I can't take credit for it because I robbed it off another podcast. But if your life was a book, what
Yeah, I
chapter
mean,
would
I
this be
think I
called?
think that's very very tricky, but I think draft plan, like any email I receive or
Okay.
anything I'm sending in the past few weeks or months has always been just the draft plan for the next week or the next month, the next 4 weeks, and I think that's okay. I mean, I think we need to, in
Yeah.
sport anyway, we gotta flex and move. We go somewhere with a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C, and chances are neither of them is what happens. So we got to be resilient. We gotta be innovative, and we got to be able to flex and mold. And COVID has really really challenged that. But we're going to come back stronger.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with draft plans for sure.
That's a good title now. I haven't had that one yet. But look, Róisín, really appreciate you coming on and giving up your time. Best of luck now with Tokyo 2021 and looking after everyone. And hopefully this COVID thing clears up and we get a good crack.
Thanks a million, Orla. Thanks for having me.
A massive thank you to Róisín for coming on today, and I just want to wish her and all of the Irish senior women's hockey team the best of luck in the 2021 Tokyo Olympics as they kick off against South Africa July 24th. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, be sure to leave a rating and review, and if you're interested in starting up your very own podcast, be sure to get in touch with the Primal Productions team over on Instagram at Primal Pro.